Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. My name is Juggi Bhasin. To become a subscriber, all you have to do is to press a red button on your screen. Subscription is, of course, completely free. And would also really appreciate if you could like this video and share this video with your friends. All right. So we know that these trade tensions with the United States, they continue. Nothing has been solved as yet, despite a little bit of thaw in the verbiage or the words which have been exchanged. There's been a bit of a thaw, but nothing really substantial has been solved. Those penalties which have been imposed upon us, those 50% tariffs, they still continue. But there's something very interesting which I am seeing, which is appearing in the media again and again and again, is this complete obsession which we have developed with the Western world. Because if we are not talking about America or criticizing America or whatever we want to say and think and do about America, then we are thinking about the European Union. We are thinking all things West because there is talk that yes, now we need to diversify our trade from America to other routes in the world, especially to the European Union. That is where the future lies. And that narrative goes on and on. And now, in the morning papers, of course, there was news that the EU trade commissioners are coming to India, and there is palpable excitement all along, all everywhere, that yes, now we are close to reaching an FTA, a free trade agreement with the European Union. It could be done as early as October of this year, could be finalized by the end of the year. And there is even this excitement and talk that some of the EU leaders, they could be invited to the Republic Day parade as chief guests at the Republic Day parade next year. That's the level of excitement in this country. And all along in this excitement for everything Western, never mind if it is America or the EU, we forget one very simple thing. That is the clarion call given by our Prime Minister about Swadeshi. Why is there no talk about it? Why are people not discussing that with that same level of excitement? Because to my mind, that is the solution. That is the way out of our problems. That is the way out of this impasse. That is the only way. But I will, of course, explain all these points in this podcast. Why this excitement? Why this obsession with the West? What is the game that is really going on? And why the Swadeshi call is so very, very important, pertinent, and perhaps the only way in a very fast changing world. But before I do that, know this. There is something called delusion, there is something called illusions, that we both have these illusions and delusions about the Western world. The Western world is what it is. And I'm not criticizing the Western world because there is so much of partaking. I also, on a personal level, do with the Western world. And there are so many good things which we all learn and absorb and imbibe from the Western world. But we also have to understand the reality that the Western world brings into our ecosystem. And let's come to straight away to important facts to underscore the point which I'm making. The Ukraine war, despite all the talk, is not coming to an end anytime soon. It would be a miracle if it ends, let's say, in the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or even end of the year, as some people are saying. It would be a complete miracle, which means that the threat of secondary sanctions on India is hanging over our head. More sanctions could be coming not only from America, but secondary sanctions could be coming from the European Union also. And I don't understand why people are not even thinking about this. Everybody's excited about the FTA. Everybody is excited about the German foreign minister's visit to India and this talk of, oh, all the world is coming to us. The European, the trade commissioners are coming. Everybody wants a deal with us. Absolutely. Great. But at the same time, they could impose these secondary sanctions on India. It's a very real possibility. And why they would do that? Because they want to make somebody a scapegoat in this great game which is going on. They cannot take on China, and certainly not China after everybody has witnessed their awesome military parade. Nobody's going to mess around with China, I can promise you. But India becomes a convenient scapegoat. That is unfortunately the reality which we have to accept. And anybody who tells me that no, the European, because we are now at cross purposes, a little cross purposes, I would say, with America. It's not everything is over out there. Still, a lot of lost ground can be retrieved. But the European Union are our new best friends. I can only say this is absolutely stupid thinking. It is imbecilic thinking because you are nothing else but walking into a trap. So that's the reality. Now, let me first give you a perspective from the European point of view. Then I'll give you a perspective from the Indian point of view that what really is going on out here right now, because it is important to understand what we are getting into or what we are getting obsessed about. As I said, we are getting about this obsession with everything with the EU. That is where, because remember, all the talk which happened after the FTA with the United Kingdom was signed. And there was this major excitement. Oh, our problems have been solved. We had this wonderful FTA with the UK, which certainly would be a very wonderful FTA. But the fact of the matter is, which you simply forget, the UK is a very, very comparatively small economy as, let's say, compared to the United States. And your problems, your economic issues, they're not going to go away just with an FTA with the UK, or for that matter, signing with some Scandinavian countries or with Switzerland. We have signed some of these deals, certainly, but they are not the solution. They are not the way out of our current impasse, of the current problems. So, what's happening in the West? Now, let's take an overview of what's happening in the West to understand the real problem. Now, what is happening in the West is that after the Second World War and right up till the present day, there are a lot of changes which are taking place. But the one thing which is true is that these are definitely, in a certain sense, especially Western Europe, these are advanced economies in the sense that they have a very high per capita income. It's also a fact that they have a certain higher standard of living, but the challenge for the West is that they are not now, or rather, they are unable to keep this standard of living. It's slipping out of their grasp. They're desperately trying to hold on to it, but it is definitely slipping out of the grasp. They can't sustain or maintain these levels, and that is where there is this talk. And I don't know how accurate this talk is that countries like France and even the United Kingdom could be seeking an IMF bailout, precisely for the reason that, as I said, there is a mismatch between demand and supply, between output and input. There is a certain lifestyle, there is a certain standard of living, of per capita income, of monies which come in, etc. All that is of a very high order, but the effort to reach that is probably no longer there. And why the effort to reach there is no longer there? Because of two or three very, very important reasons. The first big reason I think is that the workforce, especially in European countries, and to some extent, I would say even America also, the workforce has lost its zing. Why do I say that? I say that because, and this is natural to any humanity, when you have these advanced levels of incomes, a very advanced lifestyle, you get used to it. And when you get used to comforts, I'll give you an example. Let me first give you a very interesting example, and that will make my point even more clearer. In our lifetime, I have seen that my generation, when I was growing up, my entire peer group, everybody was aspiring to get into IITs, into medical colleges, All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences, Maulana Azad medical colleges, Vellore medical colleges, those kind of top engineering and medical colleges, then to get into MBA institutes, the IIMs, FMS, and all these other institutes. That was a level of ambition, which means you have to work very, very hard. Obviously, you have to be very, very bright. Now, our generation, many of us have prospered over the years. We have done well for ourselves. We have built a certain lifestyle for ourselves, and our children have grown up. And then we talk to the children. And I find this amazing that in many of my friends and my peer groups, many of the children, they don't want to go through the IITs. Don't want to go through the medical college. They don't want to put in that kind of work. They want to try esoteric new professions. Somebody wants to be a chef, somebody wants to be a designer, somebody wants to go in the fashion industry, but IIT, medicine, no, 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 no. Leave it to the folks in the hinterland. The boys and girls work very, very hard. We can't just match up with them. The point which I'm making is this, that as you grow comfortable in your life, as income levels rise, a certain level of, how do I say, that a certain level of conformity, the certain level of uncertainty goes out of your life. You get used to it. In fact, you cannot be unused to it at all in a certain sense. You are so dependent upon it. And therefore, this is the problem in the West, that they are so used to a particular lifestyle now that many people don't want to work. And the problem has been exaggerated. It has been really exaggerated, especially after COVID, because all these guidelines, when people are asked to stay at home and work from home, and even today, it sounds incredible. There are people who are still not reporting to work in the workplaces. They're working from home. They tell their employers, no, we don't want to come to work. We just want to work from home. Um, that 2 day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, in many countries has been expanded to 3 day work weekends. The joke in France is that they are holidaying most of the week. When do they really work? So the Western appetite, the Western zing for hard work, and then for the results and the fruits which follow after that, that is gone. And on top of that, the second big problem is that more and more jobs, they're relying on more and more of the work, especially the grunge work, the dredging work, the tough work, the hard work, the labor work, a lot of the skill work also, a lot of the plumbers, a lot of the electricians, a lot of the specialists of these kind, they don't come from mainstream Europe. They either come from Eastern Europe or they come from countries like India, Pakistan, and other countries. And that's the big problem. You are relying more and more on skilled as well as non-skilled labor for your everyday functions in life. And therefore, what is happening is that the Western workplace is getting more and more squeezed. It is getting more and more encapsulated into either high technology or into esoteric fields like fashion or specialized industries. They don't want to do the everyday kind of work, which is a big problem in these countries. And therefore, the other big problem which they face is this immigration problem, which is double edged. At one level, they don't want the immigrants. They realize that their demographics are changing. They have taken a lot of action about that, certainly in America, as we know. In Europe, of course, they still have many laws and all that, which they can't take that kind of action. But the other problem is they also need this immigrant workforce to carry on, as I said, their daily routines of life, both in the skilled area and in the non-skilled area, and all the drudging work and all the labor work. They require all the immigrants. And I would say even in technology, a lot of people from India, as I said, from our part of the world, from the subcontinent, go to these countries. They require these labor forces. They can't do without them. So this existential question: what do we do with immigration? Do we encourage it or we completely clamp down? They can't decide on that. That's a second big problem. And then the third big problem with the Western countries faces that, in a strange way, the governments which come, especially in Europe, either they are hard left liberal or they are right wing. Not so much in Europe, but in America, it is a right wing government. There are no centrist governments in the Western world. This is what I have noticed, because the key to cooling down all what is going on right now, what is inflammatory right now, all the trade practices, all the cultural practices, all the personal practices in terms of race, color, caste, creed, etc. All this requires, to my mind, a centrist kind of a government. But centrism is not a word which is used any longer or in favor in Western countries, both certainly in America and certainly not in Europe also. It's either, as I said, liberal hard left, or it is right wing. Right wing is, of course, in maybe two or three countries, not too many countries in Europe. So that's the other big problem. And then the last big problem which the Western countries face is that of what I call the forever wars. For some reason, the Western mind is obsessed with having wars. The Ukraine war is, of course, the biggest prime example. It goes on and on and on and on. And I don't want to get into it, of the origins of it, because that's a totally different debate, and who started it and why this started and whatever reasons. We all know the reasons and answers for that, but that's a debate for another time. But the fact is, the war is going on for 3 years now. I mean, it's astonishing. At this rate, if it continues, it will surpass the wars of Second World War or something. It just goes on and on and on. And why does it go on and on? And I'll tell you my own reason, my own reasoning is because the Western mind, even though it is no longer overtly within quotes religious, but this obsession with good and bad, between evil, good and evil. So in their mind, it is either this or that. Somebody is good, somebody is bad. So obviously in the Ukraine war, we all know is good and bad according to the Western mind. But this obsession continues. Look at the way, in comparison, how we solved this conflict in Operation Sindoor with Pakistan. 4 days flat. That's it. And actually, we taught Pakistan a lesson within 22 minutes. And the entire thing happened for not more than 72 hours. That's the way we resolve our conflicts, but not in the Western hemisphere. These wars continue on and on and on. Look at what's happening, for instance, in the Middle East, in between Israel and the people of Gaza and Lebanon and all the Hezbollah. And these just continue on and on and on. And therefore, when all these things happen, it saps the energy of an entire civilization. That's what I'm saying. The entire Western civilization, to that extent, you can sense it, you can feel it, you can actually see it, that the energy is gone. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hopelessness, there is a lot of finger pointing, all that is there. And that is a sure sign that the vitality is going away from the Western thought. And please remember, I still believe that some of the finest thought processes in the world, some of the finest cultural processes in the world, they've all emanated from Western civilization, but they just don't have a solution today of their problems. These are the endemic problems, these four major problems, which I've listed out for you of the Western world. So that's the Western world. Now let's take a look at India. What is driving us, and what is our there is a French term called raison d'etre, or the reason for our existence. And then I will try and match the two, and what is the issue out here. The Indian mindset today is wonderfully aspirational. What do I mean by that? Not only because we are a developing country, because the lowest of the lows, people at the bottom of the food chain, people at the bottom of the ladder, they all aspire to climb the rungs of that ladder, come up and sit on the same high table that you and I are sitting. That is the Indian aspiration mindset. Wonderful. This is great. And yet there is a catch out here. Even today, there is a one aspect of colonialism which we have not been able to shake off, which actually interferes with this aspiration, that for some reason, a lot of our aspiration, even today, is still the West. And the West knows it, by the way. And what do I mean by that? By that, I literally mean that the Indian mind, even today, we kavot, there's a word called kavot. We aspire, we desire Western praise. We desire Western acknowledgement. We want somebody to thump us on the back and say, well done, guys, you have arrived. But it has to be a Western interlocutor. This is our big problem even today. And in the real world, in the real politique, as they say, it takes the shape of two very important things, and mark my words here. It takes the shape, and this is the part which I'm coming to, that the interaction that's happening between Europe and between India, and why we need to be very, very careful out there is that the Western world, especially the European world, the Europeans, they certainly they are they certainly want to export to you, but they want to sanction you at the same time. Let's not forget that. This is the policy, and believe me, these sanctions or these secondary sanctions or some kind of, you know, uh, pulling down India, whether it is through devices like the carbon tax, for instance, or it is through the human rights route, or it is through the the democratic route, that you don't have enough democracy, you are stifling the minorities in your country. This was happening even as not as far back as last year. It was all happening. Today, of course, we are talking of trade, trade, and trade all the time. But the combination of all these devices is the way the Western world will pull you down several notches to tell you that, guys, you are not at our standard. We will not let you arrive at our standard. We will export to you. We will take benefits from you. We will earn money from you. And at the same time, we will pull you down either through these routes, through these sanctions. We will keep you in check. That is the Western strategy. It's always been there, but it's now so very clear now. Let me give an example. Mr. Z, I don't even want to say this man's name. Mr. Z, the president of Ukraine. A few days back, there was talk that Mr. Z is coming to Delhi. He's coming to India to meet our prime minister to see if there's something can be resolved. Where we use our good offices with the Russians, and to find a kind of a solution for the Ukraine war. And today comes the news that Mr. Z is saying that countries sanctioned by America is absolutely right, which means he's saying that India, you have been sanctioned by America, that is the right step. This is the way some people in the Western world operate. And if we don't wake up and smell the coffee, we will never ever smell the coffee, because our obsession with as I said, with everything Western, whether it is food, whether it is culture, whether it is clothes, whether it is lifestyle, whether it is even the way we talk, even the way we interact, everything is still so profound, and the Western world knows that. So it's a very, very interesting mix and a situation which is going on right now. The Western world is hollowing out because of the reasons which I have given you. But at the same time, it is desperate to maintain its high standards of income, its high standards of a lifestyle. And the only way they can do that is by exporting very, very important things which really matter to us, things which, they have expertise in. As I said, some of these things are arms, submarines, fighter jets, submarines. Everybody was jumping around. The German foreign minister here. Now, just give it a thought. If there was no talk of a submarine deal with Germany, would the German foreign minister be making this trip in the first place? I don't think so. There are a lot of German companies, and many of these hundreds of German companies I know, for instance, in Pune and other places, and in South also. But the fact is, the submarine deal is a very, very big deal if it happens, and it'll be worth thousands and thousands of crores. So there's money to be made there. Similarly with France, yes, we have the best of relations with France, but if the Rafale deal was not there, the Airbus deal was not there, would France be like, responding to us in the same way? Big question. And therefore, they want to export these things to you. Their advanced technologies, especially communications technologies, our social media runs on these technologies, the telecom technologies, then specific products like apples, fruits, scotch, all these things. They want to export, but at the same time, as I said, they make inroads in a certain way, whether through the human rights route or the democracy route or through the sanction route, to undermine you at the same time. And that is the way the West operates. And therefore, this is the situation which we face. And therefore, we are jumping all over the place. Oh, we are going to have this FTA with the European Union. Hold your horses, guys. Hold your horses. Just see what it entails, what their next steps will be. Be very careful, be watchful. And that is why I'm saying it becomes even more and more important that we take the Prime Minister's clarion call for Swadeshi very, very seriously. Now, let me explain to you a little bit, not in great detail, what is this Swadeshi thing all about? A lot of people in this country, even today, associate Swadeshi with khadi. That it means khadi jackets from the khadi emporium, that you go and buy khadi jackets from there, and it's supposed to be very fuddy duddy or whatever. I promise you on one thing. I last winter I bought a couple of these jackets from the khadi emporium, and they are wonderful. Not only are they warm, they're very cheap. They look smart also. You wear them with jeans, you look really, really good. So that's as far as the khadi emporium is concerned. But leave aside the levity. The important point which I'm making is this. Swadeshi is not only about wearing, or it's Gandhiji's charkha wheel, or a lot of people have this notion of Swadeshi. Swadeshi or Atmanirbharta, they're the same thing, they're synonymous. The biggest example which I can give you right now, which will everybody will understand, is the way we defended ourselves against the Pakistani attack in Operation Sindoor, the missile sheath, Swadeshi. Yes, it had foreign components like S-400 and all that, but the brilliance with which we incorporated all these elements, including indigenous defensive platforms, the S-400, the Akash Tir, and made it into a Swadeshi umbrella which cannot be penetrated by Pakistani missiles, by Pakistani drones. I mean, that was brilliant. That was is the prime example of Swadeshi. Number two, all the rockets, all the satellite system, all our aerospace endeavors, all our, outer space efforts done by ISRO is completely Swadeshi. The, how do you pronounce it? The cryogenic engine which we have developed. We developed it on our own because that technology was denied to us by everybody, including I think the Russians also. Or maybe we got some part of it, but the whole world denied us that technology. But we developed it on our own. And look at this example of Swadeshi, and you sending these, and you are the only, for the first country in the world to land in that particular part of the south pole of the moon, which nobody has ever done before. All thanks to Swadeshi technologies. Look at the drone systems which we developed in Bangalore, in Karnataka, which were used in Operation Sindhur against the Pakistanis. The brilliance with these systems were developed, and how helpful they were. This is Swadeshi. Swadeshi doesn't just mean khadi or wearing certain kind of clothes or whatever. And therefore, the concept, unfortunately, which is still stuck in our minds, that everything Western is hip and cool and very nice and aspirational, and it's Coke, Pepsi, whatever, and all that. And whatever is Swadeshi is fuddy, duddy, old, cobwebby. That's not true. That is not true at all. But yes, I do agree on one thing: the communication has to be enhanced. It has to be of a different order to make people really understand that Swadeshi is cool. It is the need of the hour. And then when GST 2.0 was announced by the government, and I'm so very happy, and I full marks to a company like the Mahindras. They announced this immediate cut in their SUVs, Mahindra SUVs, which are of course indigenously manufactured. I think the though Hyundai is of course a South Korean company, but the Indian division of Hyundai have also announced cuts. I would like to see more and more manufacturers, not only in the car industry, but in all industries, especially the FMCG industry, especially people manufacturing daily use items like toothpaste and soaps and detergents, household appliances, and all kinds of goods, all kinds of goods. announcing rates. Announce them day after day. They should, in fact, be this competition of companies standing up, say that after GST 2.0, we are announcing cuts because we want people to buy, especially in the festive season, and continue the buying later on. That to me is Swadeshi. That to me is the real power, because what you're doing is you are increasing the internal consumption in the country. You are decreasing this reliance on foreign goods. Not This is not the reliance, the decreasing of foreign goods kind of decreasing reliance which Gandhiji, the call which he made during the independence movement. It is not that. It is an existential moment for you, because, as I've explained in this podcast, the Western export comes with a catch. It'll come with certain caveats. It will come with political caveats. It will come with certain social caveats. It will come with social cultural caveats that do this, or else we will take it out, or we will withdraw, and we will trouble you. That's as simple as this. And for a moment, I'm not even saying that we kind of, estrange ourselves from the Western hemisphere, from the Western thought, and from the Western processes, from the import and export of Western. Not at all. That, in fact, if the FTAs are happening, wonderful, great. But I'm saying this, the problem is actually on our side. We know the games that people play. The problem is our dependence immediately. We seek these. We are, in Hindi, sometimes it's locally it's called we are a Jugadu nation, which is true to some extent. We seek these shortcuts. So अमेरिका के साथ नहीं बनी तो ईयू के साथ बना के रख लो. That's the thinking. That fine, no, it doesn't work out with America. Let's now have these great ties with you so that, we can compensate all that we have lost. It's not going to happen like that, I promise you. By all means, go for the FTA with the EU, but go with your eyes open. Go with the fact that, yes, you also need to play a game. Get their goods, get the technology, get all that, but at the same time, like China, keep on developing your indigenous technologies, because eventually your indigenous technologies, your goods, the degree of services which you provide, they are going to be the answer. They are the real solution for the country, not extraneous imports. That is not the solution. This is the solution. And that is why I'm saying we need to refocus ourselves from this entire Western obsession into a Swadeshi or a self-reliant obsession. That should be our new obsession, because please remember, look at the world today. The world today actually has completely changed. And anybody who tells me, oh, these problems are short-lived, just wait till the midterms in America or 3 years in America, there'll be a change of guard, everything will go back down. And I'm sorry, I don't agree with this at all. See, what happens is this. A certain cycle starts in the life of a nation. The democratic cycle of the Obamas of the world and all that the democratic phase lasted for such a long period of time. Two terms of Obama and followed by Biden. And similarly, I promise you, take my word for it, that the Republican phase is going to continue for the next many years in America. It's not going to go away as you think. And if one person is there or not there, it doesn't make a difference. The policies will remain. And also in the Western world, in Europe and other massive changes are taking place. These things are not going to go away in a hurry. And therefore, all the more reason that keep on engaging with the West, certainly, but your mind, your centrality of your mind has to be on self-reliance, development, whether it is technology, whether it is clothes, whether it is food, whether it is anything which we love to aspire from. Prime example is your Bollywood, for instance. We already have developed Bollywood to that extent, so if you can do it in Bollywood, why can't you do it with other products and services and goods in India? That is the need of the hour, because the world today is completely changing. It's not going to go back into that old world. The initial idea the last few years the idea of an interdependent globalized economy, because there the concept was that supposing if you're developing, let's say, a car, and therefore you get the chassis from one place, or you get the steering, let's say, from another country, you get the tires from a third country, you get the those bags, which the airbags which protect your life in the event of a crash, from another country. That kind of interdependence of different countries, different economies, all that is changing. All that is going to change now. The world is completely changing. Bodies like WTO and UN are completely ineffective. The WTO has completely lost its relevance. Davos is nothing today but a talking shop, nothing else. That's it. Every country is looking inwards. Immigration, and I'm going to do another podcast on this entire immigration and this matters. Even in a liberal economy like the UK. Now, if students they are they in the visa period, if they stretch beyond that by a day also, they will be immediately deported. And I don't know why we are not talking about this. This is very big news, and it's coming from a liberal economy like the UK. It's not coming from America. So all the world is going to clamp down more and more. A time will come when our Indian students will just have to find whatever they have to find within the country and not outside. It's going to happen very, very fast and very, very quickly. I see the entire H1B program in US going through huge problems. So the world is changing. And this is not a change which is going to last for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 months or till the midterms, as a lot of people think. Not at all. This is a change which is going to last for a long, long time. The cycle will continue before again the entire cycle of the world changes and something else comes back. So you got to prepare for what's coming next, as that famous line in the movie The Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the last line is, "A storm is coming." So, yes, the storm is coming, and we have to be prepared to face that storm. And so, on this note, I come to the end of this podcast. I hope you liked it. You liked my show. Do watch it. And on this note, happy note, goodbye and cheers from my end.